afternoon, my name is Israel, and tonight I'm going to be speaking about activity number 7, which involves international trade policies. Where were they born? How were they born? How are they controlled? What type of trade activities are developed throughout time? And how are they promoted and how are they regulated? Let's first off use or try to distinguish the terms of fair trade and free trade. I'm going to be using my computer as a tool to help me remember the topics. So we understand that free trade and fair trade is a very common use of words that we see along any type of topic that involves international trade. We understand free trade as a consideration of a no interference from national government throughout the activity that implements international trade, which means that fair trade is the imposition, it's the regulation of the international trade on behalf of the responsibilities imposed by the national governments. Then we are going to go ahead and explain the certain type of arguments that have been along with created or along with born throughout the international trade activity and throughout time. We first have national defense that speaks about or aims to strengthen self-sufficient evolution. What does this mean? Their primary objective is to educate producers to be able to be self-efficient, to be able to have them not be dependent against other types of markets. Then we have the critical raw material protection. As we all know, the material or raw material is one of the most important things or one of the first steps that has to be done whenever we're speaking about any type of production, which can either be products, which can either be services, or it can be intellectual material. They encourage or they want to protect any type of consequence or any type of activity that damages the use of those materials, which is the overload activity or the overload use of the same materials that we have spoken before. Then we have the encouragement of constant competition between machinery and technology. As we all know, we are currently living the fourth industrial revolution, which means that machines are taking over the production that has been done on behalf of human help or human tools. So we are basically trying to encourage, or we're basically trying to balance the productions that are done on behalf of machines and the productions that are done on behalf of humans to be able to keep a clean competition between both. Then finally we have the protection against infant industry, which basically, as we all know, there always has to be some sort of protection against those who are employed, those who are part or specific part of a company, of an association. We must be able to protect them and let them know that the jobs that they have may not be a consequence of dialectal abuse, which basically means that they are not going to be removed from the job that they are trying to do within one day to another. We are trying to encourage and improve the productions that is made in that company and maintain the employees as well to be able to elaborate a more efficient type of production between them. Then we are going to go ahead and speak about the intervention of national government and the adoption of trade policies. As we all know, throughout international trade, there is always this type of insecurity about national government interfering between this activity, which might be a bit deficient whenever we speak or whenever we try to think about that national governments are always aiming against their own selfish purposes, and that's why many prefer to not have international trade have their interference. But here we are speaking about a balance between national government adopting that type of purpose of mutual benefits between the participating parts. Now let's go ahead and speak about the policies that run protection of international trade. We have one, public choice. which involves commerce versus special interest groups. We have 2, industrial policy, which turns around the protection of domestic industries to promote the acquisitions of the products. We have the economic development, which speaks to balance the export promotion strategy and import substitution of strategies or continuation of activity. The tariff barriers are all those things that are imposed either by the government or either by participants of the market that are trying to avoid or trying to slow down the efficiency or the transition movement that's going on between market, producer, and final client. Basically, a trade barrier can be considered as a tariff, which basically involves an extra charge against the products that are being exported or imported. Then we have the non-tariff barriers, which involve governmental laws such as regulations, policies, or procedures that impede international trade. Finally, we have quantitative restrictions, which basically speaking of an easier way of understanding it is that they are only going to accept a certain amount of products coming into their states and a certain amount of products as well going out of their states or out of their nation. Then we have the internal damage of production between the economy of the participants. What do we refer on this? As we all know, international trade is always looking for a purpose of growth. Now, many companies may leave their specific or natural nation to evolve and acquire a more cheaper labor hand, which basically causes that the economy inside of that nation is going to fall because they are not going to have the same type of employees, they're not going to have the same type of production, which is one of the main things that are trying to develop or trying to protect whenever we're speaking about international trade policies. Finally, we have the balance between what was already mentioned, governmental laws, and international trade policies. We still yet cannot speak of regulations that are being very efficient whenever trying to confront tariffs or trying to confront non-tariff barriers. Though it has been evolving throughout time, and we can say that somehow international trade as we know it now is very efficient, but we cannot say that it hasn't grown completely. We have to go and work against all those type of mutual benefits that are or should be the main object whenever we're speaking about international trade. That will be all on behalf of my part, and thank you very much. Have a good night.